Salam sisters, my name is Jana and I'm here to bring you Real Sister Talk by Sadaqah Welfare Fund. I am so grateful you are here because this podcast is designed for you, our sisters in Islam, as a thank you from Sadaqah Welfare Fund for helping us reach so many of our brothers and sisters in need. Assalamu alaikum sisters, welcome to another episode of Real Sister Talk. Today is a very special episode because I have two speakers with me, two guests, and one is in the studio, one is via Zoom, and the other reason it's really special is because we have the only brother that we have this season in Real Sister Talk joining us from the UK, brother Isaaq Mohammed. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. And we have Sister Naimah Abdat here with us in the studio. Assalamu alaikum, Miss Naimah.
Salam, Jana. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited. I'm like trying to like tame it down, but I'm really excited about this episode. I'm like asking for myself, not for people. Subhanallah. So I'm just going to start with you, Naimah. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. All right. So what I do, I'm a naturopath. I'm also a skin diagnostician.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to run workshops and educate the community about health and looking after ourselves because I believe that in this day and age, we actually don't really know how to look after ourselves.
Yeah.
It was something that was like inherited knowledge. I guess it was just something that was passed on, whereas now we're so disconnected from nature, from ourselves, from our creator that it does need lessons. You do need to attend lessons to actually understand and know all these things.
Yep.
And I'm at the moment I'm studying also a master's in immunology, and that's in medicine.
Yep.
So that's why when the other sister was talking about, she's against natural. For me, it's like you got to look at the whole picture.
Yeah. SubhanAllah, I always like when you say naturopath, people are like, oh yeah, like that's quackery or stuff like that. You face those deniers. And I feel like with my GP, for example, like she tells me, yeah, work with a naturopath, like especially if there's something that you don't have medicines for or you don't require medication for it, try to like figure it out in a natural way. So some people are pro, some people are against. So I feel like the more educated we are, the more we're learning about the topic. SubhanAllah. Yeah. So I'm gonna do this throughout the whole interview. I'm not gonna go like with Naim. I'm gonna switch between the two. So brother Isaaq, just can you tell us a little bit about yourself as well, so that the sisters know like how we're combining these two episodes? These two, I guess, Samin. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Are you there with us?
Sorry, yeah. So I just had
He's writing notes, is he? Yeah.
No, I just had a slight delay. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah. So about myself, pretty straightforward, I guess. Born and raised in the UK, spent some time studying abroad. Started off with engineering, lots of soul searching along the way. As it developed, my passion was in education, as holistic as possible. And so I entered into with the trajectory that I sort of started on with engineering and a background in mathematics. I went into maths teaching. There came a point where I realized that I needed to be able to do more, and for me to do more, I needed to seek more in terms of knowledge and experience, and that led me to spend some years abroad, studying and traveling various different sciences, many different continents in the end, and then I returned to the UK to go back into maths teaching, but it wasn't the same, and a lot of my work throughout my life, very much I was involved in community work, charity work, and it was really around the service of people. And I was fortunate. It wasn't something that, I can't take credit for it. I think one of the greatest honors for anyone is to be in and around serving people. And it was something that was taught to me from a very young age, that the true way of having happiness in this world and having a life that is pleasurable to one is actually to bring service to others and to bring goodness to others. And so that was really the core of my journey. And so even when I came back, I went straight back into serving and trying to do some projects, and then the projects went from one step to another. More recently, what I'm probably a little bit more known now by is my work in the Temperament. I think I'm sure we're going to get to that, but I think for me, one of the things I've always done, and again, credit to my teachers and whoever it was, really just told me about that. Knowledge is something that is actualized through experience. and many things can stay in the books and can stay in theory. But I think my extensive experience with human beings and just understanding them and understanding so I could serve, whether it was mathematics, whether it was theology, wherever it was. And so it just led me on to developing the projects that I was involved in. And so that's pretty much in a nutshell, if I can, in a few sentences, who I am.
I actually feel it. Like, I've attended your course. You came here to Sydney and I felt like you're a teacher. Like the way you're really good at that, like delivering the information. You captivate the audience by like your delivery. So it's really, I feel like, subhanallah, maybe like Allah had the plan all along for you, that you went through teaching to actually go like and teach people about temperaments and like do what you do, because you have the delivery. So tell us, if someone doesn't know anything about temperaments, because when I attended your course I had no idea. I interviewed Sister Naimah for another podcast, and she kept saying temperaments, and she told me a little bit like what she thinks I am, and she was like, and I'm like, what is this? And I started searching it, and then subhanallah, like you happened to come like a few months later to Sydney, and then that happened, and I'm like, okay, I want to learn about this, and I went. So if someone doesn't know anything about temperaments, can you tell us what they are about and why are they so like important to know about, basically?
So in a basic nutshell, I mean, I think if I was to speak to somebody without taking too much time, I would just say that it's a framework in which most of our subconscious activities are framed. And for us to come to know ourselves from our subconscious perspective, many of us work from a subconscious level without realizing what that is. And so it's a psycho, spiritual, and biological model, and one of the very few in the world, to be honest, that encompasses everything. It was a science that initially was identified, you could say, by the Greeks, was further adopted by the Christians, and enhanced by the Muslim tradition. Many of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ were in accordance, or I should say, that the science of the temperament and its developments were in accordance with the Prophet's words and statements, and that's what the framework was. It's a science used to understand the human being in all the facets and all the different dimensions, in understanding the biological, the mental, and the spiritual, and how those intertwine and interconnect. And essentially, the way we teach it is to know oneself, and so you can know much about yourself, much about what you don't already know. I was recently actually doing some mentoring, and I actually was saying to one of my mentees that I think it's come to a point now, it came to a point a while back, but I have so much more conviction that I can meet somebody and tell them their undiscovered strengths in life. And I firmly believe that if somebody tells me that they don't know their strengths, I can actually very clearly, and it's not that I'm able to do that, it's the science of the temperament. It's a fascinating science. I've been studying it for about 7-8 years, and I'm still constantly finding gems and books from various different researchers. I mean, it's so interesting that, you know, when we speak about it, and I've mentioned it, and I've answered your question, but I'm going to go off on one. So many of the times when we look at it, and we look at the study of the Greeks, we look at Ibn Sina's work, and we look at it from a perspective of medicine.
Yeah.
Some people would look at it from the perspective of behavioral intelligence, and that's really what I focus on. But I found some books recently about how the Ottomans used this in societies in classifying types of men. So imagine that the Ottomans were able to recognize this is a man of the sword, a man of the pen, a man of a trade, and that young men were not just simply, this isn't simply to classify and to label or to group, but rather how people understand themselves and give them an assistance from a social perspective, is what the Ottomans did. And I also found another book from maybe around the 1800s from England. And it's incredible, the sort of sketches and research. I'm sure Naimah would absolutely go mad with a book like that. I'm still trying to pace myself through it, but it's a very interesting science, and it's been used for such a long time, 2,500 years, for people to understand themselves. I would take 2,500 years and history over a modern day theory.
Subhanallah. And like there are 4 temperaments, right? Can you just like tell us just briefly about them, so that people can, like, if they want to learn more, they can actually attend your course or whatever, but like briefly, can you just explain what the temperaments are?
Sure. So generally the temperament of a person is where one's subconscious behavior acts. Many people would call them the 4 temperaments, because this is the label that's given to 4 of the dominating humors within a human being. So essentially we all have these 4 fluids, I have them, you have them. Most of our naturopaths would look at us and would determine what we need based on the constitution that we have, right? And the dominant that we have is what is known as our primary, and then the subdominant that we have is known as our secondary. And as a result of that, every single person could be generally or roughly classified by their primary and secondary. And each of the four are sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, and melancholic. And these are the Latin terms that we use today. I haven't decided to change them with different colors or terms. It's common these days that you find them. If anyone is ever in the corporate world, the DISC analysis is based entirely on that. The 16 personality types of Myers-Briggs is also based upon that as combinations. So 4 times 4, you get all these, these combinations. So that's what it is. And essentially you'll find yourself as either a sanguine choleric or a melancholic phleg, a melancholic choleric. And just by knowing this, the dominant and subdominant, you're able to know more. But I will say, because you did say that if anyone wants to know more, I will say try to avoid the internet, because we live in an age where you wouldn't learn the religion from the internet, you wouldn't learn maths from the internet. So you have to be very careful that if you do go on the internet, you just have to make sure that you have a good source, because there's many people who write blogs out there, and it's very difficult to understand. A lot of this is based on people's perspectives, people who haven't read, and then unfortunately, sometimes it can get confusing. So my advice is try to avoid sites.
All right. So you've done a course, Naimah, with Brother Isaaq, and that's why I wanted to combine the two of you, because I feel like it's so interesting to combine the idea of health and temperaments. So can you tell us just a little bit what the course is about? If people want to learn more about it, they can check it out.
Well, the first one that we did was the whole self. That one was absolutely phenomenal, because that was like, when you see the two combined, like he was talking about, he studies it from that behavioral aspect, and then I'm looking at it from the way we energetically react with food, or the energies around us, and then combining those two together was really, really amazing. And then we did it again as a webinar. Inshallah, we'll do it again sometime later. So that was one of the workshops that we did. And that was the one that we did together. And then there was the health ones that we just did for the people that have studied temperaments, and or that knew something about temperaments. So that way, when we're talking about food and the qualities of food and how it affects you, they kind of have an understanding about themselves. And then they can look at they can actually then have that connection with the food, and then kind of find within themselves how that affects me, and where do I need to be, like when we're talking about the 4 temperaments. So we're all one of those, we're majority, like majority is predominantly 1. And then what we want to do though is be in balance with that 1. So as a naturopath, well, it's not all naturopaths, to be honest, because it was traditionally was a hakim that did temperaments in part of their natural medicine, but now in naturopathy is gone towards more science, and so I think it's lost a lot of that temperament in terms of temperaments and finding that balance. But what I do is basically find the imbalance, and let's say, for example, you could be a choleric, which is predominantly fire or heat and dryness, but you could have not enough heat, or you could have too much heat. So finding that balance first, or finding your imbalance, and then working towards creating a balance. And so that workshops that we do is to combine that, because we are not one-dimensional people. We're not, us humans, we are, there's so much layers to us. And there's so many things that affect us. In fact, it's very dynamic what's within us, like even our faith, the Prophet ﷺ says in a day, our iman can change how many times in a day, like we are very reactive to our environment. And I think another thing which is important to me and learning about temperaments is Islam teaches us to reflect on ourselves and always be an agent in your life. Like, you don't sit back and allow things to happen for you. And if you don't know what you are, if you don't know where you're at, if you don't know how, you won't even know how things affect you. And if you don't know how things affect you, you have no control. Like, you have, obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the one in control, but we have that I guess, agency that requires us to assess how things affect us and then move away from the things that are negatively impacting us and go towards the things that are going to make us, you know, the best that we can be.
This podcast is brought to you by Sadaqa Welfare Fund. And now back to the podcast. SubhanAllah. And like the four temperaments, if I remember, it's like a choleric is fire, and then melancholic is earth, and then phlegmatic is water, and sanguine is air. Okay. I'm just remembering now. I'm remembering my what's it called? I should have studied my notes because I have like the actual PDFs. But yeah, so basically it's like some foods would be bad for some people because of their temperament.
Well, so for example, when we look at it just very, very generally, there would be foods, let's say they'll say, oh, cold foods are better for cholerics in general, right? So like cucumber and watermelon, you would say, okay, that's very cooling and moist, so it would be good for a choleric person. But if that choleric person is, you know, very, very cold choleric, then that's actually going to be detrimental to the health, because at that point, the body's actually going to be, when a choleric has too much cold or dampness, the body will work so hard to actually bring the heat. And sometimes we see it in the form of.
But why would they be cold? Like if they're choleric, how come with that? Like would they be like environmental?
Lots of things. So it could be like, you know, even parents, how your parent parented you.
So you're going like against your nature basically, because you're
like your fire. If you think of a fire and it's kind of just been I actually say to some of my clients, like, you're a dwindling fire that just needs more heat. And nutritionally as well, that's a lot of the times it's nutrition, not having enough nutrition can cause that too. And you might be like, because I have let's say a client that's 25, so they're quite young, you know, and they haven't really gone through a lot in life, and then we look at it, it's like they haven't they've always been a picky eater or something like that. So yeah, like, but that's why it's really good to work from the psycho perspective as well. Yeah. That in combination, because this, like I said, there's just so many things that affect a person. Yeah. And putting that all together gives you a clearer picture of where you're going to go, what you're going to do with that information. Yeah. So like
Brother Isaaq, like if you want to say, I remember you said that in your course that the Prophet ﷺ had like a perfect balance of every temperament. So if you want to like say the characteristics of every temperament and how the Prophet ﷺ had that, like this is just a question that popped up right now in my head. How would you say that? Like how did the Prophet ﷺ achieve every temperament and in what sense?
Yeah, it's a good question actually. It's quite, I always love a good question because it allows me to sort of connect to different things. I actually remember one of my teachers told me that essentially the journey of life is to make connections. I mean, it's for us to see this world and to connect back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So since then, I appreciated every mathematical learning I ever had, because a lot of mathematics is making connections. You're always trying to find out what X is. And so anyway, so I like a good question. It allows me to think. And it's a very, and really for us to understand that question, I would just say, due to the fact that with this platform, it's important to understand what the temperaments are. So I'm just going to do a quick summary of them in the most quickest form ever, and I'm sure that this is not going to be giving much respect to the temperaments, but I'll try to just sum it up. So one of the best ways for us to understand this is to understand the four elements. And if we were to ever see the element as a personality, what would a fiery personality be? Right? Just to think for a moment, what would a fiery personality be? Now, most people laugh at this point because they actually think about a person that they know, and more than likely that person is a choleric and they're a fiery person. One of the reasons why the fiery ones are the most apparent to us is because, behaviorally speaking, They are literally the most apparent. If you walk into a room, if there's water in the corner, it will stay in the corner. If you go into that room, the air will certainly somewhat affect you, right? You might get a scent from it. So sanguines are also like that. Earth will just be there. You might not even notice the earth. It might literally be what you're standing on, and you won't notice the melancholic. Whereas the fire in that room will let you know. Same way. So if you were to imagine what would a water person be like, and the moment I say that, people almost have an effect to like, oh yeah, those watery type of people. They're not in your face like fire. They're just there. They're nice. They're flowy. They're reflective. Like literally, when you're with them, you sort of get a lot of yourself back, and so they're really good people to be around. They're like natural counselors, I say. The airy ones are the ones who are all over the place. They are here, there, and everywhere, and sometimes when you need them to be there, they're not there. So that's what a sanguine is. It's like the airy type, up in the clouds, not grounded, generally speaking. This is the most basic form of a person, and of course many of us, one of the key words that you guys said there when you mentioned parenting was nurture. I think you said nurture, and that's really what this is about. It's about the difference between nature and nurture. So when you ask that question, what contributes to it, it's nurture, everything that would consist of that. And then to go to the earth type, what would an earth personality be like? Would it be the most exciting person? Probably not. But are those people useful? Do they provide a seriousness that's much needed? Do they provide a groundingness that's much needed? Yes, they are. So the moment I say this, you start to think to yourself, oh, that person's a little bit like this, that person's like that. So anyway, that's what it is. And if you were to look at the Prophet sallallahu and to see what would fire show? Fire is leadership. The Prophet sallallahu is evident in his leadership. The fact that the whole religion when in 23 years and he transformed the face of the earth, that alone shows that as a leader there had never been a leader like him. And so truly as a cleric who's an achiever, I don't think anyone's ever achieved what the Prophet ﷺ has achieved. I mean, not that I don't think, I know that no one has achieved what the Prophet ﷺ has achieved. From the water element of his gentleness, was there anyone more softer and gentler than the Prophet ﷺ? And what's interesting is one of the ways that we know that, we don't really need to always read the hadith. We just know that the reactions of the people, and what else would make a person see somebody and smile and say, oh, his smile is just right. Just the fact that it's not even the smile per se, but it's what relationship has been developed. Right. And that won't be with some fiery person, except that they have this softness to them, just like water, the fact that they're quite flexible with people. And then the grounded nature of the Prophet ﷺ, the serious nature of his whole mission, his life. Definitely you can see that he definitely had that part to him as well, which was a serious nature to him, that sometimes you'd see him and you'd see him to be in some great thought. And also his lightheartedness, even his joking nature at times. So all of these parts are clearly evident in the Prophet ﷺ, and more evident separately in his companions.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So that's why we should always try to go to the middle, where we try to center ourselves the most, to be all the temperaments at one time. But I feel like that's why, for some reason, this is why I found temperament so amazing, is because in your ibadah, in religion, now I understand where my weak points are from my temperament.
Isn't that amazing?
It's subhanAllah, I'm oh, that's why I find it need to double check my intention or whatever. I'm okay, well, now I understand.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you were to look at it from that framework of the religious perspective, and it's all about virtue, it's about morality, it's about right and wrong. A lot of the negatives and weaknesses of what we call temperaments essentially is the nafs, and it's misplaced actions, it's misplaced passions, it's misplaced anything. People say to me, oh, these are my negatives. I say they're not really negative. We use the term positive and negatives due to the vantage point that we have as time-bound, space-bound people who are judging a situation by its context. But in the reality of things, every single strength that you have, and every weakness that you have or negative that you have really is misplaced. Even anger, people often see anger as a negative, whereas anger really is an evidence of your passion. And if you understand how you are to express your passion, then it won't be in a tantrum, but rather it would be, what am I willing to do about this situation? So that's why I like the temperament so much, is because it's so transformative, and you don't need a lot of information really. It's very simple, and so a lot of what we teach is basic behavioral intelligence, but it's some of the most transformative intelligence out there.
SubhanAllah. So, Naima, like a lot of people just keep bringing up that topic of prophetic medicine. You want to just summarize why do you feel like prophetic medicine now is essential to our lives? Like, how would you tell people to like actually look it up and
how to get into it?
Yeah.
Well, I think number one, I would like to say, first of all, it's not just about like black seed oil and that, you know.
Oh yes, of course. I'm just like mentioning the hadiths that people remember all the time. No,
that's normal.
Of course.
That's when like when you mention prophetic medicine to anyone, like they'll just think of
honey?
That specific hadith, you know, about honey, black seed oil, and the thing is, I think if we kind of go a bit deeper into his teachings and we look at his actions, the Prophet ﷺ showed us that prevention is so big, you know, and health is so important without his words. So, for example, there is so much things in our deen about hygiene. And specifically, you would find them, for example, at times where you could catch a virus or a disease. So, for example, before you eat, you know, you have to wash your hands. And when you go to the bathroom, you have to wash. You know, these are all things. And even when you're making wudu, the areas that you have to wash in wudu, there's specifically those areas that have openings that bacteria and virus can enter. And so looking at these sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we can see that prevention of disease is huge. It was a daily thing. And because bacteria, viruses in those times were the most common causes of diseases, that was something they obviously focused on. But even in our time, if we were to bring it to our lifestyle and we look at the diseases that's prevalent now, it's more diet and lifestyle and like stress. You know, everything's just coming from stress, diet, lifestyle. I feel like I repeat myself every day with every client. Sometimes I forget. I'm like, did I just say this? But it's so it's going to that and understanding that we need to do things and look after ourselves before the disease happens. You know, we don't wait until we're sick. You know, and so that's one of the biggest lessons I think that the Prophet ﷺ taught us is prevention is better. You know, is the first thing. And not being in a bubble, I guess, of thinking it's not going to happen to me. You know what I mean? Or thinking, why would it happen to me? I have this or whatever. No, it's taking the initiative before it happens. So I think that would be the biggest thing. And from there, you can look at, okay, so if we were looking back at COVID, and we were looking at, you know, the older people were the ones that were getting it more, and understanding that virus and disease. I won't get into that. But why it happens, you know, part of it is also going to affect people with lower immunity. Not specifically COVID, but like just in general viruses. So lower immunity, so taking something to strengthen your immunity is already prevention. So having that as a habit as well, not just before winter or not just when you're about to get sick, you know. So black seed oil and honey, having that mix in the morning is really good to strengthen your immune system, but even eating really well.
Which I'm not doing at the moment. I told you I'm guilty of that.
But that's the thing. I think it's a lot of us that, you know, live that stressful lifestyle. It's this busy, fast-paced life, and I think it's really important to understand what it does to us, like what that kind of lifestyle does. And it's not that you can't be busy, and it's not that you can't, especially like when we talk about temperaments, when I talk about to my clients, is you can't deny yourself of those things that make you you. You know, you can't deny yourself. Like, for example, the faster temperaments, you can't say to those faster temperaments, don't do any work, sit at home, you know. You can't say that. So you can't deny that, but what can you do to support your body with that? Do you know what I mean? What can you do to strengthen your body so that your capacity and your resources are greater? And I would say, like I think we were talking about earlier, a smoothie or a soup, foods that are heavily nutrient dense,
Yep.
but easy to digest, is where where it is for people that are living that fast lifestyle.
Yeah, I should start getting on that, especially now with the crunch time and all the podcasts and everything that's happening.
Yeah, maybe you need a multivitamin.
Yeah, I should invest in that. But to be honest, like my mom now just has COVID, and she's in the hospital, and the first thing they gave her is zinc, vitamin C. Like they just pumped her with yeah. So like I'm like, people deny that the idea of supplements, but that's what they're treating her in the hospital. Of course, they're giving her because IV fluids and all that, but they're upping her
immune system as well. Yeah, even like now, because I am studying from the medicine science perspective, and I do notice in like the classes, the doctors there are talking a lot about what we naturopaths were talking about a long time ago, but I guess by the time it actually comes out to the public and everything, that takes a long time. So we don't need that science right now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala built us with innate knowledge. But if you're not connected to yourself, that's when it's a little bit difficult. So I have a lot of people saying, oh, I've got these symptoms and, I've been told it's normal, just ignore it, it's fine. You know what I mean? But I know I'm not fine, especially if they're young.
Yeah.
Because they're young, they get dismissed. It's like, no, you shouldn't be getting that. That's an older person disease. So no, it's not happening to you. But we need to be connected to our body to know this is not right. What I'm feeling is not normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal for me. Even if it's normal for you, but everyone around you does not feel like that. There's something wrong. There's always an explanation.
Yeah.
And I love my work because I feel like a bit of a detective in finding out for people what that thing is, what's that issue that's causing all the other symptoms.
SubhanAllah. Yeah, that's amazing. So, Brother Isaaq, your most popular course is Know Yourself. There's part 1, part 2, part 3. So why is it so important to know ourselves? Like I remember I told that to one person. I'm like, you don't understand. It's so good. Like, it lets you know yourself. And she's like, okay, why is it so important to know myself? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's really important to me. But I didn't know how to explain it. So I'm going to ask you this question just because I was like, I didn't give him the right answer. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, if I was going to the gym, for example, right, and I wanted to better my time in the gym, I could invest in a course that would teach me about being in the gym. If I was at work and I wanted to be better at work, for example, I have a business, for example, then I would go on a business training course and I would be better at business.
Yeah.
And then I want to improve my relationships at home, and then I'd get a relationship coach, and then therefore I would be better in relationships. The biggest common factor in all 3 of those things is you. And you could have saved yourself a lot of money by just doing a course on investing in yourself. And that's what it is. The common factor. And then the other thing is that many of us think that immediate environment is separate from our actions. Yeah. The way I responded to you invited a response from you to me. So I was far more, so I'm in a sense, if I was to ask you a question now, I would change this whole thing around, and I would be hosting you in this podcast, right? So it's really about understanding how am I responding to things. One of the things, for example, for myself, I learned early on in life that telling stories is one of my natural talents. I remember I used to get to school in the morning, and we'd have 10 minutes before the phone would start, and I would tell my friends some fake story of how I got kidnapped along the way. I was in a helicopter. It's just so funny. I can't believe I forgot this. I forgot this. But we just, it was just movies and influence that then would make me tell this whole story, and they would love it. And I look back now and I noticed I was in my element. Now, one beautiful thing that Naimah said was that part of the work that she does is, first of all, she returns a person to her element, or a person to their element.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a person in their element? They're flying. They're so happy. There's no effort involved. You are your best self without someone telling you to be like X, Y, and Z. Just be you properly. Be you appropriately. And so that is all a part of knowing yourself. Now, if you don't know yourself, you go from place to place to place, trying to be this, trying to be that. What would that result in, do you think? It would result in the world that we live in, which is full of masks. And as a result of that, people are one way here, one way there, one way here, one way there. And as a result, they actually are confused. They're a mess emotionally because of their attachments to different things. They go to the gym, but they actually don't enjoy the gym anymore. We've actually created gym plans for each temperament so they can stay motivated in the gym properly. But I'm just, it's not plugging the things. This is simply that the greatest investment in your life is yourself. And I always say that that you're going to learn it the easy way or the hard way. Naimah knows, and you know this, that and you might not even know this to the degree that I believe this, that everything that was on that sheet that you received when you came to the workshop, you learn either by being in the workshop and by taking on the knowledge, or life will teach you it. But the greatest thing, like I say, is that at the end of the day, you're going to face yourself. And the reason why people don't want to do knowing yourself is because they don't want to face themselves. And only people who have courage, who've come to that realization that, you know what, I cannot keep telling this person to move. All that what would help me is to realize how much can I move in a situation? How many relationships improve the moment somebody says, how many times have we been there just saying the same thing again and again? Again and again and again, and then we hate saying it because we know it makes them angry, it makes them sad, it makes them irritated, it hurts them. And so we realize that, wait, hang on a second, what can I do about this? And that's when your life changes. When you realize responsibility that you have, that's when knowing yourself becomes worthwhile. But if you're not interested in taking responsibility, then what's the result of taking responsibility? Is just blaming others. Then life will be blaming others. Life will be, your time at gym or your business or your relationship will be a result of what your business did, or your gym, or the gym offered to you, the air conditioning, the weight section, whatever. What the gym offered you was what you then did in the gym. No. Autonomy and understanding what your life is, understanding what can I do about this, and that's when people start the journey of knowing yourself. And till today, I mean, we've had like 400 plus testimonials. I can't even believe the figures sometimes, but it's not. I always believe that if a person comes in with that autonomy, how is it not going to be transformative for them?
Yeah, I feel like as well, because I really am interested in psychology myself, but I feel like the temperaments course was different in a sense that you answer your own questions as well. Like I feel with psychologists, they always tell you, this is the way you treat your child. And, you have positive psychology for this and this. And sometimes it's unrealistic in your story. But with temperaments, it's like you figure out yourself. And then when you figure out why your child's temperament is that way, or why your spouse's temperament is that way, you understand. And like you said, you move ways differently. I was like, oh, this is why we like fight over this or whatever. He was starting to understand, and I felt like as it helped me in my marriage, which I found like it's amazing. It's mind blowing that I didn't know what I'm getting myself into. But
I actually think also before you actually meet somebody, there is knowing your temperament, knowing the perspective, like.
Well, too late for me. It was like 12 years into my marriage, but okay. I was like, I'm not changing now, but we're just going to try to figure it out.
But like, that's the thing. I think that's another thing about knowing yourself is it actually helps you in making your life decisions, so that you're not making this life decision not knowing, you're just putting, going in blindly, basically. Like with anything, you want to know, if you enter a business deal, you want to read all the fine print. I mean, we hate reading fine print, but, like, you want to know everything you're getting yourself into so you know what you're taking on.
Yes.
And Hugh's like, if you're going to, get into a relationship with someone where you're out of choice, then you need to know what you're getting yourself into. You know what I mean? And so I think that's another really important thing about yourself.
This is actually something, because I was going to mention it earlier, that really within the Islamic tradition, it was really the nafs. And you can look at all the 4 temperaments and understand it's all your nafs, especially all of the lower nature parts of any of the temperaments, all of the possible vice that each of them, so either pride, whatever, I don't want to label them right now, but whatever those particular vice are, that's what you'll face with that person in those difficult times. And so when it comes to this pre-marriage stuff, I gave advice to somebody recently who knows the temperaments. For those who are listening, might be, if you know the temperaments, you'll understand what I'm going to say now. I just said, when you look at the 4 temperaments, just imagine that one at its worst. Which one can you put up with? That's the way to look at it. Which one are you able to put up with?
Because you're going to see the worst of that person at one point.
they're all going to be nasty. They're all going to be nasty, bulldozing cholerics at times.
At one
They'll
time.
be super quiet, passive phlegmatics. They will be
Silent
brooding,
treatment
moody
fakes.
melancholics. They will be,
Irresponsible
irresponsible sanguines, right? Exactly. You just got to ask yourself,
God.
which one am I able to put up with? Right. And
Oh.
that's one of the most useful tips for people for pre-marriage. I did put something together for couples who are considering divorce, because I felt like that was where something that I wanted to just address first before I go for the pre-marriage thing. But I've been asked this a lot from day one. I remember the amount of times I've heard people say to me, if only I knew this. Naimah, you were there at the end of that session, the last session in 2019. And we were all silent, and a brother just said, if I knew this a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be getting divorced right now.
Subhanallah.
And then, a number of people, we just broke down into tears and when they broke down, it wasn't because we were sad for him, because every one of us is the same. And that's what the Temperaments teaches you, is that we're not so different, right?
Yeah.
We're not so different. And it's a universal framework. And the other universal frameworks out there are some of the most powerful ones, such as religions like Islam is a very universal framework. And that's why when you know universal stuff, it will help you no matter what. Like particular based knowledge will always be restricting. Like, I don't know. I mean, I've looked at various different things out there, but when you've got something that offers you universals are processed by your context and will give you specific solutions. That's what you were mentioning earlier on, that you answer your own questions, but I'll just give you, it's really like maths. That's what maths is all about. Maths all teaches you x plus another x. What will it give you? It'll give you 2x. So whatever is troubling you, you keep doing that again, it's just going to increase, right? But add y to the picture and you get xy, and that's a whole different situation. What if you try minus x and you get rid of x, right? So it's so I know that's super algebra there, but the point being is that that's what the framework of universals offers.
This podcast is brought to you by Sadaqah Welfare Fund. And now back to the podcast. So like I spoke about how like it helps with marriages, like to know the temperaments. Like what if like someone their children have like a temperament that's opposite to theirs? What is your advice to them? I'm not.
If somebody asked me this question, I would say I'm currently teaching a course called Nourishing the Child Temperament, and you better sign up for it. After that, I would say after that, because what we've done is we've looked at the combinations of all of them. We've looked at how does a melancholic parent see every single one of them. And I'm always, I mean, you've been to the workshop, it's all solution focused. It's not just give theory and I'm this and you're that and what's the solution. And so if somebody has the opposite temperament, look, this concept, in most problems, in most arguments, for example, both people feel they're doing the best thing, right? They genuinely feel like I'm providing what I think is the best. The same thing when people like love each other. Both people are trying to express love as they think is best. However, there's always a problem because that's not how I would like to be loved, right? You gave me a diamond ring last week. You can't give me another diamond ring this week. I want now a movie ticket. I don't know, just get examples that. So it's important to understand perspectives, right? Like the love languages, it offers you a different perspective. The most important thing when it comes to raising or just working with anyone of any different temperament, especially with children, is that the child, first of all, our first module is understanding the lens of a child, first of all, right? You have to understand the lens of a child. And we combine it with various different works like Sayyidina Ali's references, the Prophet, etc., because those for me are really sources of guidance. But then you have to understand the other temperament, and you have to understand how that temperament considers best, it will be very different. A sanguine's best is very different to a melancholic's best. And if you've got a melancholic temperament, a child, for example, and you're a sanguine yourself, then you're going to see lots of different problems that, to be honest, they are not problems. They just need slight tweaking. And so the best way is you need to understand the melancholic framework as much as possible. And if you can't go to the workshop that I'm doing, then just go back to the notes that I gave you and understand what is it that they're about. Go back to those principles. I give principles. Just remember, they're idealistic. They have these high ideals, and they get worried if these high ideals will not be met, either by the parent or by themselves, right? And so a lot of the times it's going to be alarming because, but isn't that a problem, right? Isn't that a problem? It's not a choleric, rebellious nature. No, it's a worry that we won't achieve what's expected.
Yeah.
Right. So these are just some examples for a melancholic child.
Like I told them yesterday, I was recording an episode. I'm like, nothing a shrink can't fix, because I'm trying my best here. But I'm like, I try like with my children, you know, like I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing like the best thing I can. And it's always like the mom guilt plays a role in all of us. So I'm like, I don't think I'm understanding this child. So, you know, I don't want to be the one that the nurture made them move away from their temperament so much.
I actually think opposing like parents and the child, like let's say a child and a parent has opposing temperaments, I actually say it helps to bring balance to the child when they get older, because that energy that you've placed on them, or whether you know it or not, it's you being you, is going to affect them in the opposite way. So it brings them closer to balance. But when you get more technical and like looking at specific situations, I think that's when
it's so funny as well when you have two children that have two different temperaments. It's so funny. Like I have, and if you see it from outside, like some people tell me I like one child more than the other, and I'm like, no, it's just that we click. One child I click with them, and the other child is
phlegmatic children are just the best.
Oh yes.
That's just very
I know, like they're helpful and whatever, and like they help you out and they're always there for you, and I'm like it's just that we click. It doesn't mean like, of course, but like it's
choleric children are good too.
But that's the thing. Like, for example, like if you've got a sang, for example, and they see that, and they see any type of injustice, and you're not being fair, that is their cry, and that needs to be catered for, because like Naimah said, later on they'll appreciate that. But the problem is, and this is the thing, like you know, one of our teachers, Hakeem Salim Khan, who's mine and Naimah's teacher, one of the things that he said was that you don't need to give people separate meals. You just need to sprinkle the right herb on top, which is specific to them, right? At times when they need it. And that's the only thing that you need. It's never going to be perfect. It's just that what we end up doing in moments of panic, in the moments of panic, the choleric will go to the fight. And if you've got a choleric child, they go to the fight. And the whole problem there is fight and fight response. If you've got a phlegmatic, for example, who goes to the freeze response or a flight response, and the parent who's a choleric is going onto a fight response, because at that point you're not going to look at your considered responses. It's all subconscious. And what we're actually doing in the current course is we're looking at learned behaviors of our own parents. Consider your own parents and what you absorbed and what you understood as parenting, and how much have you made peace with that as your own style? Because if it was opposing you, you would actually hate that style, and that's exactly what that child is now looking for. So if you're running away from something that child needs, and this is the thing, like we all need to know this, and this is, I remember Sheikh Yahya wrote us saying that it's so important for parents to know the temperaments of children. It's incredibly important. And I wanted to do it as a one-day course, but I tried so hard. I tried to do it to 5 weeks, but I could not. Other than we've settled on 10 weeks. It's the longest course I've ever done, but I couldn't settle on anything less, because it's a journey that we're on. And part of it, we have a massive, half an hour Q&A, because we bring these specific scenarios to which we all then look at these solutions, because we have to bring it back to our reality. I can't just speak in this theory. I have to have people give specifics. And So yeah, it's a journey.
What I'm doing now is like because I know like I have opposing temperaments. I like it takes a village. They say it takes a village.
Yeah,
I
that's
get
so
my
true.
friends that actually have
The other temperament or similar
Yes.
temperament to your child. I actually find that sometimes I'll find like a friend, that is very similar temperament to my child. They actually click really, really well. And sometimes things that I'm not understanding about this child. Can you explain it? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Subhanallah, it works every time. I'm like, well, they say it takes a village, and the way like the olden times were like everybody was connected, and the mothers were together helping each other out and all that. I'm like, it does, like
Yeah, I think now it's important to, even though like we don't really have a village, is make your village like however you choose to do that. And there's different ways of doing that, but I think it's very, very important to do that.
So Naimah, this season is pre-Ramadan. Basically, this episode is gonna air pre-Ramadan. So, what is your advice like for sisters who are embarking on the month of Ramadan holistically?
Yeah. Okay, so if we know that we are beings of connection, so we're always looking for ways to connect to people, to on every level, like spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. We just want connection on every level. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us as well sources of comfort where we make those connections. And one of those things is food. The thing is, we develop unhealthy attachments to food.
Yeah.
And where we are feeling a spiritual void or mental emotional void, we turn to food, because as Muslims, the other vices like that other people might go towards when
like drinking, whatever.
Drugs and all of those kind of things, is haram, so they'll go to food, right?
Food. I always say it's the only halal thing. Leave us alone, man. Let us eat.
Yeah. I have clients who say to me, but that's how we have fun. Like that's all we do. You're gonna take that away from us? Or like coffee. No, you can't take my coffee away. You can do whatever you want. Don't take away the coffee. And that's where I know. You know what? That's a problem. That's a problem, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to have no attachments to anything. And the reason for that is that we can come straight to Him. In every situation, in every aspect of our life, that we need to see and find Him. And if you're putting band-aids and this and that and putting connections to things that are just covering up, then you'll never find it.
Yes.
Then you won't see it. You won't find your problem. You won't know what your next step is. You won't know where to go. So Ramadan, to me, and if we're looking at it holistically from spiritual, mental, emotional, physical sense, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the day we're not allowed to eat food, and we're not allowed to also have any intimate relations with our partners. And both of those are sources of connection.
Yeah.
Right? So cutting those connections, and where can you go? What do you do?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? There's only one way to go.
SubhanAllah. Yeah.
But if we don't do Ramadan properly, we sleep in the day, we fill our stomachs at night until we're really full, and we keep eating. It's almost, again, dulling that innate, I call it the fitrah, which is if our fitrah is going to bring us there. So as long as we follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us and the way that the Prophet showed us, then eventually our fitrah will lead us there.
SubhanAllah, yeah.
Yeah, so this Ramadan, I think in preparation, look at your connections, look at where you find comfort from.
Yeah.
And are those sources of comfort healthy or unhealthy? Are they masking a problem? There's a bigger problem that you actually need to address that you're running away from. And what is that problem?
Yeah. I'm just thinking about my coffee. You always tell me about my coffee. And I'm like, don't.
A lot of people hide their problems in coffee.
Oh. Man, it's like, it is like sometimes I'm like, even though my kids, if it's like a crazy day, I'm like, just let me have a cup of coffee and then I can deal with everything. Like I'm like, just let mommy have just
what's
5 minutes of my coffee and then I'll be back.
I'm not proud of this, but it has happened a lot where I've taken people off coffee. And I don't do it to everybody. So people, if you're worried,
don't like
not come see me because
she's gonna stop you.
No, but I have people come back and say to me, you know what, I thought I was taking coffee for energy. I've stopped coffee and I'm still energetic. I still feel fine. I thought I was going to get these headaches. And that's because we actually uncover the real reasons. Why are you having coffee? Is it an emotional connection? Do you just want your time with your mug, that warm mug. And that's how these attachments actually.
I tried to switch it to herbal tea. It's like, I'm like, I just leave it all full. My husband's like, you didn't drink it. I'm like, I'm trying. I'm trying to actually switch that drink, but
Well,
it's
there's
just not
probably
happening.
a bigger issue that you need to uncover.
Learning from you guys. So Isaaq, as well for you, I know that it's longer hours in the UK for Ramadan. How are you prepping for Ramadan yourself?
Yeah, for me, it's mostly goals. It's just trying to make my goals as clear as possible. Of course, the food, you start. Beauty for us is our tradition sort of gives us the prep anyway, which is starting to get those fasts in. You start from even from really before even Sha'ban, but for me, it's really just kind of having those goals, trying to make it clear for myself, trying to break it down, and I don't know. I don't know if I've actually only ever really done it in this way. It's just those goals, whatever those goals may be, but it's just kind of getting my list of goals, and then just heading into Ramadan to get into.
Do you feel
that,
like, but there's a dip in between? That's what I do. I'm like, I'm gonna do everything, and then I'm like, okay, halfway through, I'm like, it dips, and then last 10 days I just go back up. But I just don't want to have that dip this Ramadan. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. Like sometimes you gotta ask yourself, like, really and truly, do you not want to have that dip? Because if you don't want to have that dip, then you want to lessen the targets overall. If you don't mind the dip, so I'm gonna go for I don't mind the dip for planning, but I'm gonna cater for the dip, which is I'm gonna go hard a little bit extra and allow that dip to happen, not give myself a hard time over the fact that I'm gonna have a dip. Because I think I what I love about some of the stuff that Naimah was mentions about connections to things, and I just thought about what's my connection with Ramadan, like how has it become? Do I dread the dip, the drip, the dip, and do I dread the dip, and do I give myself a hard time over the fact that I dipped again and feel like I failed due to that? So this is again personal, but I'm sort of okay. I've noticed patterns of how my Ramadans go, so I'm just gonna count as much as I can and try to come out the other end on a successful, and rather than having like another relationship where once again I've failed it. And I've been doing this for the last couple of years actually. Is I treat Ramadan like an actual entity where I'm like, it's a relationship I have with Ramadan. And I don't mean the ibadah, I mean Ramadan itself.
Yeah.
Like, how do I treat it? How do I have a conversation with it and see what happens. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years, and I think that's been really insightful for me. Yeah. So my prep is mostly just the goals and clarifying, in clarity on it. Because some people get let down by their goals. They don't even know what their goals are. And some people say, "Oh, my goal is X," but they've never drawn the map to X. If you don't have a map to anything, you're not planning on getting there.
Yeah.
You put it. It's so good saying I'm gonna get somewhere, but if you haven't put it into the sat nav, you're not gonna go nowhere.
SubhanAllah, yeah, like we had a sheikha that just told us, like, for Quran, like, memorization. I'm like, I always get discouraged because I'm not a fast memorizer. And then she's like, it's about the time. Set that time, and whatever you memorize, just don't forget it. And I'm like, setting the time, that's it. Like, say an hour of memorization, but don't set the goal. For me, that was really encouraging, because I'm like, I always say, I'm going to memorize this surah. And then it just takes me so long that I get discouraged and I just leave it. And then I'm not memorizing at all. So I'm like, subhanAllah, like you said, if you don't have the map that you say, okay, I just spent an hour, no matter what, I'm getting that reward for that hour. It doesn't matter. So subhanAllah, it's all like perspective, I guess. Inshallah, like as you know, like this podcast is by Sadaqa Welfare Fund, and I feel for me it changed. I joined this organization just because I wasn't connected to charity. So when the opportunity came, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna what's it called? Try to see like how I can actually give back to the community through charity. So how do you guys like approach charity in Ramadan? I
think Isaaq, do you want to answer that first?
Okay, I'll start with you. I turn to you first. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of my time I try to give it in fundraising. I know that there's a set amount that I'll give, but I just feel like that every single one of us has power to fundraise. And I don't think that sometimes people don't realize how nice it is to fundraise, and how much of a beautiful feeling it is, and a beautiful memory for yourself to just to fundraise for something. And so I think it's nice to give that target to ourselves. I mean, I get approached by charities and whatever, But yeah, I always try to have a target. I'll actually be going to Yemen at the end of Ramadan for 10 days for some aid work. And Yemen's quite a dear place to me. So I'll be going for the last 10 days, just doing some aid work in some of the places there. So now a lot of my fundraising will be for that project that I'll be doing. Again, I'll be able to go out myself and see the projects, and that's something that we all really appreciate in times.
It's different, I feel, when you actually see it on the ground, because like I always know Yemen is suffering, but when you receive the videos from overseas, like here, because we receive them raw from our team there, it's a total different experience. I'm like, okay, this is like a different level of understanding how much they're suffering, subhanAllah. So I'm pretty sure it would be like an overwhelming, like very saddening, but as well, like, we need that awakening where we actually remember our brothers and sisters are really like in much need of us.
But I this is the thing. I think that many of us, we actually don't realize, again, the strength that we have, the capacity that we have, what we're actually able to do. And I think that when you start fundraising, if it was up to me, I would make it mandatory for everyone who leaves school to volunteer for charities for 2 years. During the time in college, that everyone should volunteer. Because I think I look back at my time, and I mentioned the time that I was involved with charity work. I was young. I didn't have time, but I didn't have money, but I had time. And so I gave my time. I look back and all I ever see from my time in charity work was that it actually gave me far more than I ever gave it.
Yeah.
And so all of my teaching and my public speaking actually came from the fact that I was thrown into the deep end in either hosting charity dinners or whatever else like that. So I always say to people, just get involved. And sort of go beyond even what your own pocket is able to afford. Look into your energy. And I'm a big, this is something that Naimah speaks about as well, but I'm really just big on energy. And I just think that many of us, we end up really wasting our energy, especially in today's time. I mean, the young lads, I can't believe how much time people actually spend on gaming and how much of energy of people is being used on, and then people have a crisis about energy issues all the time. So I would say really it's spend some energy in charity rather than simply just taking it out and giving it. Give some energy into charity and see what happens.
SubhanAllah. Yep. And for you, Naimah?
So I would say, like, when you're giving, you think you're giving, it's actually for yourself.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even if it's $1, for example, you're giving with that intention, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to return that back to you many times over.
Yeah.
And I remember a story from Sister Dahlia, because she always runs the 10 last nights.
Sister Dahlia.
Yes, when she started that, I loved that. And she shared a story about a lady who didn't have anything to give and just gave like $1 or something like that. And then personally, I've seen what's happened just doing things like that, where if you don't have, that's actually the time to give.
SubhanAllah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you don't have, you need more.
We get so excited when we see this dollar donation. Like we don't, of course, we don't know the names or whatever. Like it's all like private. But when we get like a dollar donation, we're like, subhanallah, like some people, or like $20. I'm like, these people are giving $20. They probably don't have anything.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you don't have time, give some time. If you don't have money, give some money, because you're going to just receive that back manyfold. So whatever you need, give. Yeah.
If you guys want to learn more about what Sadaqah Welfare Fund is doing this Ramadan, make sure you check out sadaqa.org.au. Jazakumullah khair, guys, for joining me. I really loved this episode. Inshallah, the sisters would benefit from it as much as I did. So Jazakumullah khair. Sisters, if you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the audio version on your favorite podcast app, and make sure you comment, like, and share this video with your friends and family. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.